before you try to fix, before anything else, before you try to fix anything, before you try to understand anything. Just pause here with me for a moment, because something inside you has been carrying more than it was ever meant to hold. And maybe no one sees it, maybe no one really knows how much you've been holding together, how much you've been pushing through, how much you've been pretending to be okay, even when you're not. And tonight, you don't have to do that anymore, not here, not now, not in this space, because this is where you can finally begin to come home to yourself, not the version of you that the world expects, not the version that has to perform or stay strong or keep going no matter what, but the real you, the quiet you, the tired you, the part of you that just wants to rest, without explaining, without proving, without holding everything together. So if you're here right now, whether you found this intentionally or somehow ended up here without even knowing why, just know this: you're not here by accident. Something in you was ready to let go, ready to soften, ready to finally rest. And you don't have to force anything. You don't have to try to relax. You don't have to clear your mind. You don't have to do this right, because tonight, this isn't about effort. It's about allowing your body to slowly remember what safety feels like, allowing your mind to gently step out of overthinking, allowing your heart to loosen its grip on everything it's been holding. And even if your thoughts are still busy right now, even if your body feels restless, even if your emotions feel heavy, that's okay. You don't need to change anything yet. Just being here is already enough, because something very quiet and very gentle is already beginning to happen. You might not notice it right away, but your breath is starting to slow. Your shoulders are beginning to soften, and that constant tension, that subtle tightness you didn't even realize you were holding, is starting to loosen just a little. And you don't have to rush this. There's nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to do. For the next little while, you are allowed to simply exist. No expectations, no pressure, no performance, just you as you are. And maybe it's been a long time since you've given yourself that. A long time since you've allowed yourself to just be, without trying to improve or fix or figure everything out. So tonight, let this be different. Let this be the moment where you stop carrying everything alone, because you were never meant to hold it all by yourself. Not the stress, not the overthinking, not the pressure, not the weight of trying to be everything for everyone, and especially not the quiet exhaustion that follows you into the night. You don't have to carry that here. You can set it down, gently, slowly, without force, just like placing something heavy you've been holding for too long back onto the ground, and finally letting your hands rest. And maybe at first, your mind will want to pick it back up again. That's okay. That's normal. You're not doing anything wrong. Just notice it, and gently bring yourself back here, back to this moment, back to this space, back to this quiet invitation to come home to yourself. Because home is not somewhere outside of you. It's not something you have to find. It's something you return to again and again and again. And tonight, you are returning, not all at once, not perfectly, but softly, naturally, in your own time. And as you stay here, just listening, just breathing, you may begin to notice something subtle, a sense of being held, not physically, but gently, quietly, like something around you is allowing you to rest. And maybe you don't even fully believe that yet. That's okay too. You don't need to believe it. You only need to allow the possibility that you are safe enough to begin relaxing, even just a little, because that's how this begins. Not with a big shift, not with instant calm, but with small moments, tiny softening, barely noticeable changes that slowly become something deeper, something steadier, something that carries you without effort. And if your mind starts to wander, that's perfectly okay. You don't need to pull it back forcefully. Just let it drift like a cloud passing through the sky, and gently return to the sound of my voice, because my voice is not here to control you. It's here to guide you, like a quiet presence walking beside you as you make your way back home to yourself. And you don't have to know how to get there. You don't need a map. You don't need to figure it out, because your body already knows, your breath already knows, your nervous system already knows how to return to rest. It's just been waiting for permission. Permission to slow down, permission to soften, permission to stop holding everything so tightly. And tonight, you are giving yourself that permission, right here, right now, without needing to earn it, without needing to justify it, without needing to do anything at all, just by being here, just by listening, just by allowing this moment to unfold. And as you continue to settle, you may begin to feel a quiet shift, like something inside you is finally exhaling after holding its breath for far too long. And that exhale is the beginning of release, the beginning of rest, the beginning of coming home to yourself. So stay here just a little longer, letting each word, each pause, each breath guide you deeper and deeper into a place where you no longer have to hold everything together. Because for the first time in a long time, you are allowed to simply let go. You are allowed into or allow us to be here yourself, to be. Maybe you're still holding on to the day. Maybe your thoughts are still moving, filling the space with noise. That's okay. You don't need to stop anything. You don't need to control anything. Because this moment is not about doing, it's about arriving. So just begin by noticing your breath, not changing it, not forcing it, just noticing the quiet rhythm that has been there all along, softly moving in and out. And as you notice your breath, you may begin to realize it's been carrying you through everything, every moment, every thought, every feeling, without asking anything from you. And now, for the first time today, you can begin to return to it, gently, softly, without effort, just noticing how the inhale rises and how the exhale falls like a slow, natural wave. And there's something about this rhythm, something ancient, something familiar, something that reminds your body that it doesn't have to stay tense anymore. So if it feels okay, just allow your next breath to be a little slower, not forced, just slightly softer. And as you inhale, feel a gentle expansion, not just in your lungs, but like a quiet opening inside your body. And as you exhale, feel something begin to release, even if it's just a little. Even if you don't know exactly what it is, something is already starting to let go, and you don't need to name it, you don't need to understand it, because your body already knows what it's ready to release. So just stay with this, breath by breath, moment by moment, allowing each inhale to gently create space, and each exhale to softly empty. And as you continue like this, something subtle begins to shift. Maybe your shoulders drop, just a fraction. Maybe your jaw loosens without you even trying. Maybe your forehead smooths, as if it's remembering how to rest. And if you notice these small changes, just let them happen. You don't need to hold on to them. You don't need to make them bigger. Just let your body do what it's naturally beginning to do, because this is how it starts. Not with a big release, not with instant calm, but with these small, almost invisible softenings that slowly begin to spread throughout your entire system. And even if your mind is still active, that's completely okay. You don't have to quiet your thoughts. You don't have to push anything away. Just let your thoughts be there in the background like distant sounds while your awareness stays here with your breath. And the more you return to your breath, the more your body begins to feel that it's safe, safe enough to loosen its grip, safe enough to stop holding everything so tightly, safe enough to begin unwinding. Maybe you didn't even realize how much you've been holding until now, until this moment where you're finally giving yourself permission to pause, to soften, to stop carrying everything just for a little while. And you don't have to drop everything all at once. You don't have to let go completely, just a little, just enough, just for now. And as you continue breathing slowly, gently, you might begin to feel as if each breath is guiding you inward, like you're being drawn away from the noise, away from the outside world, and into a quieter, deeper space within yourself. And this space has always been here, unchanged, untouched, no matter what you've been through, no matter how heavy things have felt. This place remains calm, steady, waiting for you to return. And you don't have to search for it. You don't have to find it, because every breath is already taking you there, gently, naturally, without effort. And as you follow this gentle rhythm, you may begin to feel like you're being held, not physically, but in a quiet, subtle way, like something around you is allowing you to rest. And even if that feeling is faint, even if you're not sure yet, that's okay. You don't need to believe it fully. Just allow the possibility that in this moment you are safe enough to begin relaxing just a little more, and with your next breath, see if you can soften just one there more, not forcing, just allowing. And then with the next breath, another one, and slowly, without effort, your body begins to understand that it doesn't need to stay alert anymore. It doesn't need to stay guarded. It doesn't need to stay ready, because right now there's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to solve. This moment is complete just as it is, and you are allowed to rest inside it. So stay here with your breath, letting it guide you deeper and deeper inward as your body continues to soften in its own time, in its own way. And as this gentle awareness begins to settle more deeply within you, you may start to notice that your body is slowly remembering what it feels like to truly let go, leading you naturally into the next unfolding experience, I've unfolding experience. And as your breath begins, outforce, your body in its quiet intelligence begins to remember something it hasn't felt in a while, what it feels like to soften, not all at once, not suddenly, but slowly, subtly, like ice beginning to melt under the warmth of morning light. And you might not even notice the exact moment it begins, just a quiet shift, a subtle easing, a gentle unraveling, as if the tension you've been carrying is no longer being held quite as tightly. And this softening doesn't ask anything from you. You don't have to make it happen. You don't have to try to relax, because your body already knows how. It's simply been waiting for this moment, this pause, this permission to finally begin letting go. And as your breath continues slow, steady, natural. You may begin to notice small areas of release, maybe in your face, where the muscles around your eyes begin to loosen, as if they've grown tired of holding on, and without effort, your eyelids may feel just a little heavier, not forced, just gently settling, and your forehead, which may have been carrying subtle tension, begins to smooth, as if a quiet wave is passing through it, softening everything in its path, and your jaw, often holding more than you realize, may begin to unclench, just slightly, not all the way, just enough to create space, and that space is where the softening begins to grow, slowly expanding, moving at its own pace, never rushed, never forced, just unfolding. And as this wave of softness continues, it begins to drift downward, like a gentle current flowing into your neck, where so much of the day tends to settle. And here you might notice a deeper release beginning, as if invisible weight is slowly being lifted, not all at once, just a little at a time, with each breath. And as you exhale, you may feel your shoulders responding, softening, lowering, as if they no longer need to carry everything they've been holding. And maybe you didn't even realize how much you were holding there until now, until this moment where your body is finally being given permission to rest. And you don't have to drop everything completely. You don't have to let go of it all. Just a little, just enough to feel the difference. And as this softening continues to spread, you may begin to feel it moving into your arms, down through your upper arms, into your elbows, your forearms, your wrists, your hands, and your hands, so often busy, so often holding, doing, gripping, can now begin to rest, fingers loosening, palms softening, as if they no longer need to hold on to anything, not even the past, not even the day, just resting, just being, and with each breath, this softness grows, spreading quietly, naturally, like warmth through your entire body, and there's no need to track it, no need to follow it precisely, just allowing it to move wherever it's needed most, because your body knows exactly where to go. And as this gentle wave continues, it begins to reach your chest, your heart space, and here something even deeper may begin to shift, because this is where so much is held, unspoken feelings, unprocessed moments, quiet emotions, and you don't need to open any of that. You don't need to explore it. You don't need to understand it. Just allowing the breath to move through this space, gently, softly, creating room for ease. And as you inhale, you may feel a slight expansion, a subtle opening. And as you exhale, a quiet release, like something loosening, something softening, something no longer needing to stay guarded. And this doesn't have to be big. It can be very small, almost unnoticeable, and still it matters, because this is how your body begins to trust again. This is how it begins to feel safe enough to soften even more. And as this sense of ease continues to grow, it begins to move deeper into your back, your spine, where so much support is held. And with each breath, you may feel this area beginning to release vertebra by vertebra, muscle by muscle, as if your entire back is being gently supported, without effort, without holding, just resting. And as this continues, the softness begins to flow downward into your belly, where your breath now moves more freely, rising, falling, and your belly, which often tightens without you noticing, can now begin to soften, to expand naturally, without restriction, without control, just moving with the rhythm of your breath. And this natural movement is a signal, a message to your entire system that it's okay to let go. And as that message spreads, your hips begin to release, your pelvis softens, and the deeper layers of tension start to unwind slowly, gently, at their own pace. And from here, the softness continues its journey down through your legs, your thighs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet, and your legs, which carry you through everything, can now finally rest, fully supported, fully held, with nowhere to go, nothing to do, just letting go completely. And your feet can soften, toes relaxing, soles releasing, as if they're sinking into the surface beneath you, grounded, supported, at ease. And now, for a moment, just sense your whole body, not as separate parts, but as one, connected, softening, breathing, and notice how different it feels, even if just slightly, from when you first arrived here. And you didn't force this, you didn't make it happen, you simply allowed it. And this is something your body remembers. Even if it's been a long time, it knows how to return to this state of ease, of softness, of quiet release. And the more you stay here, the more familiar this begins to feel, like returning to something that was always yours. And as you continue breathing, slowly, gently, your body continues to soften, layer by layer, deeper and deeper. And within this growing softness, a new awareness begins to form, quietly, naturally, waiting to unfold, guiding you gently into the next stage of this journey, Avastani. As that softness continues, moving through still water, something else begins to awaken within you, a gentle awareness, subtle at first, almost like a whisper, but steady, present, and deeply attuned. And this awareness is not something new. It's something that has always been there, beneath the noise, beneath the tension, beneath the constant movement of thought, waiting patiently for moments like this, when everything begins to slow, when the body begins to soften, when the mind begins to loosen its grip. And now, as you rest here, breathing softly, this awareness begins to move, not in a hurry, not with effort, but with a quiet intention, as if it knows exactly where to go. And you don't need to guide it, you don't need to control it. Just allow yourself to notice whatever it chooses to reveal. And perhaps it begins at the very top of your head, a light sense of presence, a subtle feeling, as if your awareness is gently resting there, not analyzing, not thinking, just sensing. And as it rests there, you may notice how even the smallest areas can hold the faintest traces of tension, almost invisible, almost unnoticed before now. And simply by becoming aware of them, something begins to shift, because awareness itself has a way of softening without force, without effort, just by being present. And slowly, this gentle awareness begins to drift downward, like a feather floating through still air, moving from the crown of your head into your forehead. And as it arrives there, you may begin to sense the quiet space behind your forehead, a space that has held so many thoughts today, so many moments, so many things you've been processing. And now, as your awareness rests here, those thoughts don't need to stop, they don't need to disappear, but they begin to lose their intensity, like distant echoes fading into the background, as your awareness becomes the foreground, steady, calm, present, and as this happens, the space behind your eyes begins to soften even more. Your eyelids growing heavier, not forced, just naturally settling as if they're being gently invited to rest, and your awareness continues its slow descent, moving into your temples, your cheeks, your jaw, and here you might notice just how much has been held throughout the day, words unspoken, emotions contained, tension stored quietly, without you even realizing it. And now, with your awareness resting here, there's nothing you need to do, no need to fix, no need to change, just noticing, just allowing, and as you do, something begins to release, not dramatically, not suddenly, but gently, like a knot loosening on its own, and your jaw may begin to soften further, teeth unclenching, tongue relaxing, as if your entire face is finally being allowed to rest, and this awareness continues to move, flowing naturally into your neck, and here you may notice a deeper sensitivity, a quiet recognition of how much this area has been supporting you, holding your head up, carrying subtle strain throughout the day, and now your awareness rests here, not judging, not analyzing, just present, and that presence alone begins to create space, space for release, space for ease, space for your body to let go in its own time. And as this happens, your neck begins to soften, muscles loosening, tension unwinding, as if something inside you is saying, "It's okay now," and your awareness continues its journey, moving gently into your shoulders. And here you may notice something more obvious, a familiar heaviness, a quiet weight that has been carried, perhaps for longer than you realize, and you don't need to understand it. You don't need to trace it back. You don't need to figure out where it came from. Just notice it, feel it, without resistance, without judgment. And as you bring this gentle awareness to your shoulders, you may begin to feel a subtle shift, as if the act of noticing is already beginning to lighten the load. And with your next exhale, your shoulders may drop, just slightly, not forced, just naturally responding to the permission you're giving them to rest. And that rest begins to spread, flowing from your shoulders down through your arms, and as your awareness follows, you may begin to sense the quiet presence within your arms, often overlooked, often taken for granted, yet always there, supporting, holding, doing. And now they don't have to do anything, they don't have to hold anything, they don't have to be ready, they can simply rest, and your awareness moves slowly through your upper arms, into your elbows, your forearms, your wrists, your hands, and as it reaches your hands, you may notice just how much energy has been held there, the subtle tension of doing, gripping, holding, and now your hands can soften, fingers loosening, palms relaxing, as if they're gently opening, releasing everything they've been carrying, without effort, without force, just letting go, and your awareness continues, flowing like a quiet current into your chest, your heart space, and here something deeper may begin to unfold, because this is where awareness meets emotion, and you don't need to go into anything, you don't need to explore, you don't need to revisit, just rest your awareness here, gently, softly, and notice the rhythm of your breath as it moves through your chest, rising, falling, and as you stay here, you may begin to feel a quiet expansion, a subtle opening, as if your heart is being given space to simply be, without pressure, without expectation, without weight, and this awareness continues its journey, moving into your back, your spine, and as it moves, you may begin to sense the quiet strength that has been supporting you every moment, holding you upright, carrying you through everything, and now it can rest too. And as your awareness flows downward into your belly, you may notice a deeper connection to your breath, more natural, more free, and your belly softens, expands, releases, as if it no longer needs to hold anything in, and this awareness continues flowing into your hips, your legs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet, and with each place it touches, there is a quiet invitation to soften, to release, to let go, and now your entire body is held within this gentle awareness, connected, present, at ease, and as you rest here, within this awareness, something begins to deepen, something subtle, something quiet, something waiting to be noticed, guiding you gently into the next unfolding layer. And without forcing any notice, something subtle, something almost unspoken, a quiet wave of release beginning to move through you, and it doesn't arrive loudly, it doesn't demand attention, it simply begins like the first soft movement of wind through still leaves, barely visible, but deeply felt, and you don't need to guide it, you don't need to direct it, you don't need to understand it, because this wave knows exactly where it needs to go. And as you continue to breathe, slowly, gently, naturally, you may feel this wave beginning at the edges of your awareness, softening what was once tight, loosening what was once held, and maybe at first it feels almost too subtle to notice, as if nothing is happening at all. But beneath that surface, something is shifting, something is softening, something is letting go. And this is how real release begins, not with force, not with effort, but with permission. And you have already given that permission just by being here, just by breathing, just by allowing this moment to exist. And now this wave of release begins to move more clearly, flowing through the places your awareness has already touched, as if awareness and release are now working together, gently, silently, naturally, and you may begin to notice a softening in your forehead, as if the need to think so much is slowly dissolving, not disappearing, just loosening, becoming less urgent, less heavy, less demanding, and your eyes may feel as if they are sinking inward, not in tiredness alone, but in surrender, a letting go of outward focus, a turning inward towards stillness. As this continues, your jaw softens further, your tongue rests more naturally, your entire face becomes quieter, as if expression itself is no longer needed in this moment, and this wave continues, moving gently into your neck, where so many subtle tensions reside, the weight of words, the weight of thoughts, the weight of unspoken things, and now they begin to loosen, not because you are trying, but because your system is finally receiving the message that it is safe enough to release. And as you exhale, you may notice a deeper sinking sensation, as if your breath is not just leaving your body, but carrying something with it, something you no longer need to hold. And that release does not need to be named or understood. It simply happens, and your shoulders respond again, this time even more deeply, as if layers of holding are gently peeling away, one by one, without resistance, without effort, just natural unwinding. And you might notice a sense of space appearing where tightness once was, a quiet openness, a subtle expansion, as if your body is remembering what ease feels like. And that memory is powerful because your body never forgets ease. It just becomes covered by layers of tension over time. And now those layers are beginning to soften, to dissolve, to drift away like mist under morning light. And this wave of release continues downward through your arms into your hands, and your hands may feel unusually still now, as if they no longer need to hold anything, not physically, not emotionally, not mentally, just resting completely. And this stillness is not emptiness, it is relief. And as the wave continues, it flows into your chest, your heart space, and here something deeper may begin to surface, not as something to analyze, but as something to feel, a quiet emotional spaciousness, a softening around the edges of what you carry inside. And you don't need to open anything. You don't need to revisit anything. Just allowing, just breathing, just being. And as you stay here, you may notice your heart feels less guarded, less protected, less clenched, as if something inside it is finally exhaling after holding on for too long. And that exhale is not just breath, it is emotional release, subtle, gentle, safe. And this wave continues flowing into your back, your spine, where so much silent strength has been held, supporting you, carrying you, keeping you steady. And now, even that strength can soften, not disappear. Just relax, just rest, just be supported, instead of always supporting. And as this happens, your spine feels lighter, as if gravity itself has become gentler, more forgiving, more kind. And the wave continues downward into your belly, where breath and emotion meet, and your belly begins to soften, not forced, not controlled, just naturally releasing, as if it finally trusts that it does not need to stay tight, to stay safe. And each breath now moves more freely, without restriction, without resistance, just flowing like water. And that flow continues into your hips, your pelvis, where deep patterns of holding often reside. And here too, there is no need to force anything, just awareness, just presence, just allowing. And slowly the wave continues down through your legs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet. And with each step downward, something becomes lighter, something becomes quieter, something becomes softer, until even your feet feel like they are resting rather than holding. And now your entire body is within this gentle wave, not separate, not divided, but unified, softened, held. And you may begin to notice a deeper sense of stillness emerging, not forced stillness, but natural stillness, the kind that comes when nothing is being resisted anymore. And in that stillness, something very subtle begins to appear, a sense of inner space, wide, quiet, open, as if your awareness is now resting inside something larger than thought, larger than tension, larger than effort. And in this space, there is nothing to fix, nothing to chase, nothing to hold, just being, just breathing, just existing. And that alone is enough, more than enough. And as you continue to rest here, within this wave of release, you may begin to feel a deeper invitation forming, a gentle call, not to do anything, but to go even further inward, leading you softly into the next unfolding layer. That leading you, that release continues to deepen quietly around you, not inside you alone, but around you, as if the very space you are resting in is beginning to change its quality, becoming softer, quieter, safer, and you may not know exactly when it happens, because it doesn't arrive in a single moment. It builds slowly, like warmth spreading through a room, like dawn gently replacing night, like silence deepening after the last sound has faded. And this sense of safety is not something you need to create or imagine or force into existence. It is something that begins to reveal itself. When everything else starts to slow down, when the body stops resisting, when the mind stops holding on, and now, in this softened state, you may begin to notice that your breath feels different, not controlled, not deliberate, but more natural, more effortless, as if it is breathing you instead of you breathing it. And with each inhale, there is a subtle feeling of being supported, as if something gentle is meeting you, exactly where you are. And with each exhale, there is a quiet sense of letting go, as if the need to stay alert is slowly dissolving. And in this rhythm, something deeper begins to form, a feeling of safety that does not depend on anything external, not the room around you, not the sounds outside, not even your thoughts, but something internal, steady, quiet, reliable. And as this feeling begins to grow, you may notice your body responding, almost instinctively, softening further, without instruction, without direction, as if it recognizes that it is no longer in a place where it needs to guard itself. And that recognition is powerful, because your nervous system has been waiting for this signal, for this permission, for this moment where it can finally step out of protection mode and into rest. And you don't have to tell it to do that. It is already beginning, and as this safety spreads, you may feel it moving through your chest like a gentle warmth, not emotional intensity, but calm reassurance, as if something inside you is quietly saying, you are okay now. And even if part of you is unsure, even if your mind still carries questions, you don't need to resolve them. You don't need to answer them. You don't need to chase them, because in this moment, safety does not require certainty. It only requires presence, and you are here, present, breathing, softening, and that is enough. And as this continues, your awareness may begin to notice the subtle boundaries of your body, feeling less rigid, less defined, as if the edges of tension are slowly dissolving, and what remains is softness, continuity, ease. And this ease is not passive, it is deeply intelligent. It knows exactly how to guide you deeper into rest, without effort, without force. And now you may begin to feel as if the space around you is becoming part of your relaxation, as if the room itself is holding you more gently, more quietly, more fully. And this is where something important happens, because the mind begins to accept that it does not need to stay on guard, it does not need to monitor, it does not need to anticipate. It can begin to step back just slightly, just enough to allow rest to emerge. And as the mind steps back, even a little, something extraordinary begins to appear. Space, not empty space, but peaceful space, a kind of inner quiet that feels stable and safe. And in that space, you may notice thoughts still passing, but differently now, slower, softer, less gripping, like distant echoes, rather than immediate demands. And you do not need to follow them. You do not need to engage with them. You can simply let them move through, like clouds drifting across a vast sky, and your awareness remains steady, anchored, calm. And as this continues, your body begins to feel heavier in the most comforting way, not burdened, but supported, as if gravity itself has become a form of care, holding you gently, consistently. And in this holding, you may begin to sense a quiet emotional release, not dramatic, not overwhelming, but subtle, like something unclenching that has been held for a long time. And you don't need to analyze it. You don't need to understand it. You only need to allow it. And that allowance is enough to deepen the sense of safety even further. And now, your breath may begin to slow even more, naturally, without instruction, as if your body is choosing rest on its own. And this is important because it shows you something deeply true, that rest is not something you have to achieve. It is something you allow, something you return to, something that is always available, beneath the noise, beneath the tension, beneath the thinking. And as you continue to rest here, you may begin to feel as if something within you is settling into place, not fixed, not rigid, but aligned, as if your system is remembering its natural state, balance, ease, safety, and that sense of safety continues to expand, quietly, gently, without effort, until it becomes the background of everything you feel. And in that background, you may begin to notice that nothing is missing, nothing is required, nothing needs to be solved right now, because in this moment, you are already held, already supported, already safe enough to let go even more. And as that realization settles, something even deeper begins to open, a doorway inward, a soft invitation to move beyond relaxation and into something even quieter, even more still, guiding you gently into the next layer of surrender, something even next layer, expanding stillness. You may begin to notice something very subtle happening within your mind, not a sudden change, not a dramatic silence, but a gentle unwinding, like a knot slowly loosening, not because it is being pulled apart, but because it is finally safe enough to relax, and your mind, which has been working so hard for so long, thinking, processing, planning, remembering, anticipating, can begin, just for this moment, to soften its grip, not to disappear, not to shut down, but to unwind at its own natural pace. And you don't need to force anything here. You don't need to stop your thoughts. You don't need to empty your mind, because that is not how rest works. Instead, you are simply creating space, space where thinking no longer has to be tight, space where thoughts no longer have to be heavy, space where your awareness is no longer pulled in every direction. And in that space, something begins to change, and you may notice your thoughts are still there, but they are different now, less urgent, less sticky, less demanding, like distant movement in the background of a quiet sky, and you are no longer inside them. You are observing them gently, without engagement, without resistance, just allowing them to pass. And this shift, this simple shift in awareness, is what allows the mind to begin unwinding itself, because it is no longer being fed tension. It is no longer being tightened by attention. It is simply being allowed to settle. And as you continue breathing slowly, softly, naturally, you may begin to feel your mind slowing down, not all at once, but in layers, like sediment gently settling in still water. And with each breath, that settling becomes deeper, quieter, more complete. And you don't need to monitor it. You don't need to measure it. You only need to allow it. And as this unwinding continues, you may notice moments of pause between thoughts, small gaps, tiny spaces where nothing is being formed. And in those spaces, there is quiet, not emptiness, but peace. And those spaces begin to grow, not because you are trying, but because your system is no longer resisting stillness, and your mind, which is used to movement, begins to recognize something unfamiliar, something safe, something steady, something calming, and that recognition begins to soften it further, as if it is slowly remembering that it does not always need to be active, that it does not always need to solve, that it does not always need to hold everything together. And now you may begin to feel a subtle shift in your inner rhythm as thinking slows and awareness expands. And in this expanded awareness, thoughts lose their weight. They no longer define your experience. They simply pass through it like reflections on water, momentary, light, temporary, and you remain steady beneath them, unchanged, untouched, calm. And this calm is not something you created. It is something that appears when everything else begins to settle, and as your mind continues to unwind, you may notice a sense of distance forming between you and your thoughts. Not separation in a cold way, but space, gentle space, where you are no longer entangled, no longer pulled in, just observing, just resting, just being. And in that space, something very important happens. The mind begins to stop trying so hard, and when it stops trying, it begins to rest. And as it rests, it becomes lighter, quieter, more open, and you may begin to feel as if your inner world is becoming less crowded, less busy, less noisy, not because anything is being removed, but because nothing is being fed anymore. And in that quiet, your awareness begins to deepen, not outward, but inward, like sinking gently into calm water, layer by layer, moment by moment, breath by breath. And as this deepening continues, you may notice a soft spaciousness emerging behind your thoughts, beneath your thoughts, beyond your thoughts, a place that feels steady, unmoving, peaceful. And this place has always been here, but now you are finally able to notice it. And as you rest here, within this spacious awareness, your mind continues to unwind, without effort, without instruction, like a gentle process happening on its own, because it is natural, because it is safe, because it is allowed. And slowly, very slowly, you may begin to feel as if even the idea of thinking is becoming less important, less necessary, less heavy, and what remains is presence, quiet presence, steady presence, safe presence, and in that presence there is nothing to fix, nothing to solve, nothing to hold, just being, just resting, just allowing. And as this continues, you may notice your entire system responding, as if it has finally received permission to fully relax, not just the body, not just the breath, but the mind itself. And that relaxation deepens, spreads, settles, until even the effort of thinking begins to fade into the background, And now there is only softness, only stillness, only space, and within that space, something even deeper begins to open, a quiet transition from unwinding into surrender, guiding you gently into the next deeper layer. As you follow this soft unfolders gentle sensation, this soft sudden way, not in a noticeable way at first, but in a quiet, almost invisible way, as if the very atmosphere around your awareness is beginning to change, and it starts as a feeling, a subtle impression that the space around you is becoming softer, wider, more peaceful, and you don't need to imagine it perfectly. You don't need to visualize it clearly. You only need to sense it as a possibility that right now something calm is forming around you, something steady, something safe. And as you rest here, breathing slowly, gently, naturally, you may begin to feel as if you are no longer just inside your body, but also inside a space, a quiet inner environment that is beginning to take shape. And this space is not created by effort. It is revealed as everything else begins to settle, and as your mind becomes quieter, as your body becomes softer, this space becomes more noticeable, more present, more real, and it may feel as if you are entering a place that has always existed, just beyond awareness, waiting for you to arrive. And now you are arriving slowly, softly, without urgency. And as you step into this inner space, you may notice that it feels different from ordinary awareness. It feels open, expansive, uncluttered, like a quiet landscape inside you, where nothing is demanding attention, nothing is pulling you away, nothing is asking for response. And in this space, there is only ease, only softness, only quiet presence. And you don't need to define it. You don't need to name it. You don't need to understand it. You only need to rest within it. And as you do, something begins to deepen even further, because now your awareness is no longer moving outward. It is settling inward like a gentle sinking into something stable, something safe, something deeply familiar. And this space responds to your surrender, not by changing, but by holding you more gently, as if it has always known how to support you, how to receive you, how to allow you to rest. And as this continues, you may notice your breath feels quieter here, more spacious, less effortful, as if the space itself is breathing with you, not forcing, not guiding, just allowing. And in that allowance, your body feels even more supported, as if you are being held, not by anything physical, but by the stillness itself. And this stillness is not empty. It is full of quiet safety, full of calm presence, full of gentle reassurance. And as you remain here, you may begin to sense that there is nothing missing, nothing needing attention, nothing requiring action. Just this, just now, just being. And your mind, which was once active, has now softened into background stillness. No longer leading, no longer directing, just resting. And in its place, there is awareness, wide, quiet, uncomplicated. And within this awareness, you may begin to notice that even the idea of effort feels distant, as if effort belongs to another time, another place, another version of you. And here, there is no effort, only ease. And this ease is becoming deeper, more natural, more complete with every breath. And as it deepens, you may feel as if the space around you is gently expanding, not physically, but perceptually, as if your inner world is opening, becoming more vast, more peaceful, more free, and in that vastness there is nothing to hold, nothing to resist, nothing to control, just openness, just stillness, just calm. And now something even more subtle begins to happen, a quiet sense of belonging, as if this space is not separate from you, but part of you, or perhaps you are part of it. And that sense brings a deep reassurance, a feeling that you are not lost, not drifting, not disconnected, but held completely, naturally, effortlessly. And as you rest in that knowing, your entire system begins to relax even further, not because you are trying, but because there is nothing left to resist, nothing left to hold, and slowly this peaceful space begins to feel more familiar, like returning, not arriving, but returning to something you have always known, beneath all noise, beneath all tension, beneath all thinking. And as this recognition deepens, you may feel a quiet sense of relief, soft, gentle, unspoken, as if something inside you has finally stopped searching. And in that stopping, there is peace, and that peace continues to expand quietly, steadily, naturally, until it becomes the background of everything you feel. And now, within this peaceful space, something even deeper begins to open, a subtle invitation to let go even further, to sink even deeper into stillness itself, guiding you gently into the next layer of surrender. As you stay here, guiding you gently, add space, not on anything you can easily point to, but deeper, beneath the surface of awareness, where a different kind of calm begins to emerge. And this calm is not created, it is uncovered, as everything unnecessary begins to fall away. And you may notice that even the idea of trying to relax has begun to disappear, because there is nothing left to try for, nothing left to fix, nothing left to reach for. And in that absence of effort, a deeper stillness begins to form, quietly, naturally, as if it has been waiting all along for everything else to soften enough to reveal it. And now you may begin to sense it, not as a thought, not as a feeling, but as a background presence, steady, unmoving, calm. And the more you notice it, the more it seems to deepen. Not because you are doing anything, but because you are no longer resisting it. And this is important, because this calm, this deeper layer of peace, does not respond to effort, it responds to surrender. And you have already begun that surrender, slowly, softly, without even needing to name it. And as this continues, you may notice your breath feels even quieter now, more spaced out, more natural, as if each inhale and exhale is happening on its own, without instruction. And in that natural rhythm, your body feels even more supported, as if the weight you once carried is no longer being held in the same way, and you might not even realize exactly when it changed. Because it doesn't happen in a single moment, it happens gradually, like sinking deeper into warm water, without noticing the descent, until suddenly you are already there. And now you are here, in this deeper layer of calm, where everything feels more distant, more spacious, less urgent, and even thoughts, when they appear, feel softer now, less gripping, defined, like faint impressions passing through a wide sky, not demanding attention, just passing, and you remain steady beneath them, unmoved, unbothered, calm. And in this calm, something begins to open, a subtle awareness that you are not your thoughts, you are not your tension, you are not the movement of your mind, you are the space in which all of it appears. And that realization, even if it is not fully formed, brings a quiet sense of relief, because it means nothing inside you needs to be controlled, for you to be at peace. And as this understanding settles, your entire system relaxes even further, not because of logic, but because of safety, because something inside you recognizes it does not need to stay on guard anymore. And so the body responds, softening more deeply, muscles releasing in ways you do not need to track, because they are happening naturally on their own. And this is what surrender feels like, not falling apart, but coming together into ease. And as you remain in this ease, you may begin to feel as if time itself is becoming less important, less defined, as if the moment you are in is stretching, softening, expanding into something timeless, and within that timelessness there is nothing to anticipate, nothing to revisit, nothing to hold, only presence, quiet presence, steady presence, safe presence. And that presence becomes more familiar with every breath, as if you are remembering it rather than discovering it. And this remembering is gentle, almost like waking up to something you forgot was always there, beneath everything. And as you rest here, you may notice a deeper quiet forming, not just in your thoughts, but in the entire field of your awareness, as if everything has begun to settle into a natural still point. And in that still point, there is no pressure, no expectation, no direction, just being, just resting, just allowing. And the more you allow, the deeper it becomes, not because you are going further, but because you are letting go of what was keeping you at the surface. And now you are no longer at the surface. You are in the depth, quiet, stable, unshakable. And from here, something even softer begins to unfold, a gentle transition from calm into deeper surrender, guiding you effortlessly into the next unfolding layer. Some form, deeper and deeper. Something begins to happen now, not as a choice, not as an effort, but as a natural unfolding, a gentle surrender that has been building quietly all along. And you may notice there is less holding now, less trying, less needing to stay aware of everything, as if your entire system is slowly stepping back from everything that is unnecessary, and what remains is simplicity, pure simplicity, breath, awareness, stillness, and even these begin to soften, as if they are no longer separate things, but one continuous experience of ease. And you are not moving into sleep, you are being gently drawn into it, as if something deeper than thought is guiding you there, softly, patiently, without pressure. And you don't need to follow it, because you are already inside it, already part of it, already being carried by it. And as this deepening continues, you may begin to feel a quiet heaviness in the body, not uncomfortable, but deeply grounding, as if the body itself is remembering its natural state, rest, stillness, release. And with each breath, that heaviness becomes more comforting, more soothing, like sinking into something warm, something safe, something familiar. And thoughts, if they still appear, are now far away, like distant echoes, no longer pulling you inward, no longer shaping your experience, just passing through without impact, and you remain steady beneath them, unchanged, unmoved, calm. And now even awareness itself begins to soften, not disappearing, but quieting, becoming less focused, less directed, more open, more spacious, as if it is no longer looking for anything, because nothing needs to be found. And in that openness, something beautiful happens. The sense of effort dissolves completely. There is no direction now, no path to follow, no destination to reach. Only this, only now, only rest. And as you rest here, you may begin to feel as if your entire body is gently merging with the surface beneath you, not in a physical sense, but in a sense of complete support, as if the boundary between you and rest itself is becoming softer, less defined, and everything begins to feel held, effortlessly, naturally, as if you are being supported by something far greater than tension, far greater than thought, something steady, something calm, something unchanging. And in this holding, you don't need to adjust anything, you don't need to shift anything, because everything is already exactly as it needs to be for you to let go fully. And as that realization settles, there is a quiet emotional release, not dramatic, not intense, just softening, like something inside finally exhaling after holding on for too long. And that exhale is not just breath, it is surrender, deep, complete, effortless surrender. And now you may begin to notice that even the idea of you trying to sleep has disappeared, because there is no trying anymore, only falling, only drifting, only being carried, and that carrying feels natural, as if it has always been happening. You are simply noticing it now, and deeper still, you may feel as if time is no longer structured, moments are no longer separated, there is no before, no after, only this continuous softness, this continuous letting go, this continuous descent into stillness. And within that stillness, there is a profound sense of safety, not because something is protecting you, but because nothing is threatening you. Nothing is demanding anything from you. Nothing is pulling you away. And in that absence, peace becomes obvious, not created, not imagined, but revealed. And you rest inside it completely, naturally, without effort. And as you continue to drift, even the sense of drifting begins to fade, because there is no movement required anymore. Only being, only resting, only allowing. And this allowing deepens everything, softens everything, opens everything, until there is nothing left to hold and nothing left to release, only quiet presence. And that presence is enough, more than enough. It is everything. And now you are no longer moving towards sleep. You are already dissolving into it, slowly, gently, completely, as everything becomes softer and softer and softer, leading you effortlessly into the final descent of rest, as Thoth Santov. And as you let go completely now, there is nothing left to hold, nothing left to manage, to follow. Only this gentle unfolding, this final soft descent into deep rest. And you may notice there is no effort anymore, not even the effort to relax, because relaxation has already happened. Quietly, naturally, beneath awareness. And now Something deeper takes over, something quieter than thought, something softer than breath, a natural intelligence within you that knows exactly how to guide you into sleep without needing your help, and you are safe to allow it, completely, fully, without resistance. And as you rest here, you may feel your body becoming heavier, not in a burdensome way, but in a grounding way, as if every part of you is finally settling into its natural place, not floating anymore, not holding anymore, just resting, fully supported, and your breath has now become so gentle, so quiet, that it almost breathes itself, soft, slow, effortless, as if even breathing is beginning to fade into stillness, and thoughts, if they appear at all, are now distant, faint, like echoes dissolving into space, no longer forming direction, no longer shaping awareness, just passing through without impact, and you remain steady, quiet, deeply still, and in this stillness something beautiful happens. The boundary between waking and sleeping begins to soften, not suddenly, but gradually, like a curtain gently lowering, without force, without sound, and you are not crossing into sleep, you are being welcomed into it, gently, like returning home after a long journey, and there is no need to resist this transition, no need to hold on to awareness, because nothing is being lost, only everything unnecessary is being released. And as that release continues, you may feel as if your entire system is surrendering layer by layer, not in collapse, but in relief, deep, quiet relief. And with every breath, you go deeper, not because you are moving, but because you are letting go of what keeps you at the surface. And now, even the sense of you observing begins to soften, becoming less defined, less separate, more spacious, more quiet, until it feels like awareness itself is dissolving into rest. And in that dissolving, there is no fear, only ease, only softness, only peace. And this peace is not new. It has always been here, beneath everything, beneath thinking, beneath effort, beneath identity. And now, you are resting inside it, completely, naturally, crying. And as this deep rest expands, you may feel as if your body is no longer something you are controlling, but something you are being held within, gently, safely, completely supported, as if the bed beneath you has become the entire world, and that world is only softness, only quiet, only care, and there is nothing left to do now, nothing left to guide, nothing left to understand, because understanding itself is no longer needed, and instead there is only drifting, only sinking, only letting go. And that letting go is the most natural thing in the world, as if your entire being has been waiting for this exact moment to finally rest, fully, completely. And now, sleep begins to rise around you, not as something you enter, but something that gently arrives, like a soft tide, pulling you inward, deeper, quieter, and you don't need to follow it because you are already inside it, already part of it, already becoming it. And as sleep surrounds you, everything slows even further, thoughts fade, breath softens, awareness dissolves, until there is only quiet presence, and that presence is sleep itself. And now, there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to say. Only this final soft release, as everything gently lets go, completely, effortlessly, into rest and sleep. like a quiet, loving return, welcomes you home fully, completely, gently, and you drift and drift and drift into deep restorative sleep where everything is safe, everything is quiet, and you are finally home, as and softened. Even now, as everything has already softened, as everything has already let go, there is nothing you need to return to, nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to hold, only this continuing drift, this ongoing softness, this deeper layer of rest and sleep is no longer something happening later. It is already here, already holding you, already surrounding you like a quiet ocean of stillness. And even though you may no longer be actively listening, a part of you continues to receive, continues to soften, continues to release. And that is perfectly natural, because the deeper mind never turns off. It only sinks deeper into calm, into stillness, into healing rest. And now your breathing may be so slow, so gentle, that it blends into silence, as if breath itself is becoming rest, and your body is no longer needing to respond, no longer needing to adjust. It has already arrived exactly where it needs to be. And in this space, there is nothing left to do, nothing left to become, nothing left to achieve, only being, only resting, only drifting, and thoughts, if they appear at all, are now like distant waves, touching the shore far away, never reaching you, never disturbing you, just passing, softly dissolving, and you remain deeply still, deeply safe, deeply held, and sleep continues to deepen, not as something new, but as something expanding, growing wider, softer, more complete. And you may feel as if time itself has become unimportant, as if the night is no longer measured, but simply experienced as continuous rest, continuous peace, continuous letting go, and somewhere beyond awareness, your body continues to heal, to restore, to repair, without effort, without instruction, just naturally, because that is what rest does when it is deep enough, and you don't need to witness it, you don't need to guide it. It is already happening on its own, and now even the sense of listening fades, and what remains is presence without effort, awareness without direction, rest without boundary, and deeper still, there is only softness, only quiet, only surrender, and in that surrender, everything is okay, everything is enough, everything is complete, and there is nowhere else to go, because you are already here, in the deepest part of rest, where nothing is required, and everything is allowed to dissolve, gently, completely, into sleep. And now, even these words begin to fade, like echoes disappearing into night, leaving only silence, only peace, only sleep, and you drift and drift and drift further down into deep healing rest where nothing remains but calm, and you are safe, and you are held, and you are home, and sleep continues and continues and continues, gently, endlessly, softly, into night, gently, endlessly. Sigh, nothing more, because you are already there, already within it, already part of it, and sleep now is not something that begins or ends. It is something you are inside of, something you are gently carried by, like an endless quiet ocean, soft, steady, unchanging, and your awareness if it still floats gently in the background, does not need to engage, does not need to respond. It simply drifts like a feather resting on still water. Never sinking, never rising, just being carried, and deeper now. Everything continues to soften, not because it is being guided, but because nothing is resisting anymore. And this is the deepest form of rest. When even effort disappears, when even awareness no longer tries to hold itself together. And in this state, there is only peace, not as an experience, but as your natural condition, always here, beneath everything. And now, if any thought appears, it dissolves before it becomes anything. If any sensation arises, it fades before it needs attention, because nothing is being held anymore. Everything is free to pass, and everything does pass, softly, quietly, into silence. And you may notice there is no you trying to sleep now, no direction, no observer, no effort, only drifting, only resting, only dissolving into calm. And even this realization begins to fade, because there is nothing left to realize, only rest, only night, only peace. And as this continues, something very simple remains: breath, softness, stillness, and even these become quieter, until they are almost not noticeable at all, just subtle waves of existence, moving through silence. And now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to hold, nothing left to return to, because you never left. You were always here in this quiet field of rest. And the deeper you go, the more effortless it becomes, not going deeper, just letting everything fall away. That was never needed. And now, even these words are no longer important. They are just echoes, fading gently, like ripples disappearing into still water, leaving only silence, only softness, only sleep. And so you drift and drift and drift, without direction, without weight, without thought, into deeper and deeper rest, where nothing remains but peace, and even peace becomes silence, and even silence becomes sleep, and sleep becomes everything, and everything becomes nothing, and you are safe, and you are held, and you are home, and you are asleep, completely, deeply, peacefully, as I sleep, asleep, complete chan, beyond effort, beyond thought, beyond awareness trying to guide anything. And sleep is no longer something that is happening to you. It is what you are, soft, deep, quiet. And even though words may still gently pass through the background, they no longer need attention. They no longer need meaning. They simply dissolve, like echoes fading into endless calm. And your mind has now entered a deeper rhythm, a slower rhythm, a natural rhythm, where thinking no longer forms structure. It simply fades before it becomes anything at all, and your body continues its quiet restoration, without instruction, without awareness, as if every cell already knows how to return to balance, how to repair, how to rest. And you do not need to witness this, because sleep does not require witnessing. It only requires letting go, and that letting go has already happened, completely. And now there is only drift, only softness, only quiet unfolding into deeper and deeper rest. And somewhere beyond all perception there is stillness, not empty, but complete, not silent, but whole, and you are inside it, not moving through it, not observing it, but being held within it, gently, naturally, effortlessly. And if anything arises now, a thought, a sensation, a memory, it dissolves immediately, like mist touching sunlight, because nothing has the energy to stay anymore. Everything is allowed to pass, and everything does pass, softly, quietly, without resistance, and deeper still, even the sense of sleeping begins to fade, because there is no one trying to sleep. There is only sleep itself, existing, unfolding, continuing, and now there is no direction left, no path left, no descent left, because everything has already arrived, and what remains is pure rest, pure stillness, pure being, and even this awareness of rest begins to soften until there is no awareness left to hold it. Only silence, only night, only infinite calm, and you are safe, completely safe, held by nothing and everything at once, in a space that has no edges, no beginning, no end, just endless quiet, endless ease, endless letting go, and now there is nothing left to say, because everything is already complete, and sleep continues, without interruption, without effort, without end, and you drift and drift and drift, deeper than thought, deeper than awareness, deeper than self, into pure rest, where everything is already at peace, and you are home, and you are gone, and you are asleep. Asleep. And even in the deepest already dissolved, mopping around you, it is what remains, what continues, what holds everything together in quiet stillness, and you are not separate from it. There is no separation left now, no distance, no effort, no awareness trying to observe itself, only rest, only stillness, only deep unfolding peace, and even the idea of you begins to fade now, not in loss, but in release, as identity itself becomes less necessary, less defined, less present, until there is only quiet existence, without form, without effort, without direction, and in this space, nothing needs attention anymore, because everything is already complete, perfectly still, perfectly balanced, perfectly at rest, and if anything appears now, a thought, a sensation, a flicker of memory, it does not rise fully, it dissolves instantly, like ripples disappearing into infinite calm, without leaving trace, and deeper still, there is only softness, a softness that has no opposite, no beginning, no end, just continuous quiet presence, flowing without movement, existing without effort, and your body continues its natural restoration, not because you are guiding it, but because it knows exactly how to return to harmony, to repair, to reset, to rest deeply, completely, and nothing interrupts this now, because nothing needs to, everything is already aligned with stillness, and even breath has become so subtle, so gentle, that it is no longer separate from silence. It blends into it, becomes part of it, fades into it, and now there is only awareness without form, rest without effort, existence without direction, and even this awareness begins to soften, becoming less defined, less focused, more expansive, until it dissolves into quiet space where nothing needs to be held, and in that space there is no time, no night, no body, no mind, only deep infinite rest, continuing endlessly, without interruption, without boundary, without return, and you are safe, completely safe, held in something that has no edge, no limit, no condition, only calm, only peace, only stillness, and now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to follow, nothing left to say, because everything has already dissolved into sleep, and sleep continues, not as an event, but as existence itself, soft, endless, complete, and you drift and drift and drift beyond thought, beyond awareness, beyond self, into pure rest, where everything is already at peace, and nothing is left undone, and nothing is left unfinished, because everything has already returned to stillness, and you are home, and you are gone, and you are asleep, ascenden, film, and shets. Indeed, without it is what remains, what continues, what gently holds everything in place without needing attention, and you are not separate from it anymore. There is no separation left, no boundary, no distinction between you and rest. Only quiet, only stillness, only deep unfolding peace. And even awareness itself has become soft now, diffused, widespread, no longer focused, no longer directed, just existing as calm presence without effort. And if anything appears, it fades before it forms. Thoughts dissolve before becoming thoughts. Sensations pass before becoming awareness. Everything gently disappears into stillness without resistance, and deeper still. There is only simplicity now, a simplicity that cannot be reduced further, cannot be broken, cannot be disturbed, just pure resting existence, and your body continues its deep restoration, cell by cell, system by system, without instruction, because this is what it knows how to do. When everything else is finally quiet, and nothing interrupts this process, because nothing is needed anymore, everything is already aligned with rest, perfectly, naturally, completely, and even breath has now become almost invisible, a subtle rhythm blending into silence, no longer separate, no longer distinct, just soft presence. And this presence is not something you hold, it is something you are held within, gently, endlessly, without effort. And now even the sense of continuing begins to dissolve, because there is no continuation needed. Only being, only stillness, only peace. And that peace does not change, does not move, does not fade. It simply is, always here, always present, beneath everything. And you are inside it now, not moving through it, not observing it, but completely resting within it, without separation, without thought, without direction. And if any awareness remains, it is soft, distant, unfocused, like a fading echo dissolving into infinite quiet, and even that slowly disappears until nothing remains to notice anything, only silence, only stillness, only deep rest. And in this rest there is nothing to fix, nothing to complete, nothing to become, because everything is already whole, already finished, already at peace. And now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to follow, nothing left to say, because everything has already dissolved completely into sleep, and sleep continues without interruption, without beginning, without end, soft, endless, complete, and you drift and drift and drift, deeper than thought, deeper than awareness, deeper than self, into pure rest, where everything is already safe, everything is already quiet, and you are already home. Effiskait eomel soften. Even this quiet now, even this quiet awareness begins to soften into deeper stillness. Nothing you need to hold, nothing you need to follow, because everything is already settled, completely, naturally, without effort. And sleep is no longer something around you. It is what remains, what continues, what gently carries everything into softness. And even the idea of listening begins to dissolve now, as if attention itself is no longer needed in this space. And that is perfectly safe, because nothing is missing, nothing is incomplete, everything is already exactly as it needs to be, for deep rest. And you may notice that thoughts are now extremely faint, almost not forming at all, like distant echoes dissolving into vast quiet, never reaching awareness, never becoming anything, just fading, and deeper still. There is only stillness, not empty stillness, but full stillness, complete stillness, a stillness that holds everything, without effort, without movement, without change, and your body continues its natural surrender, not directed, not controlled, just happening on its own, as every system softens into restoration, quietly, perfectly, completely, and even breath has now become part of silence, no longer separate, no longer noticeable, just subtle presence blending into stillness, and awareness itself is no longer focused, no longer centered. It has expanded into softness, into quiet space, into gentle dissolving presence. And in this presence, there is no longer a sense of direction, because there is nowhere to go, no deeper place to reach, no further step to take, only this, only now, only rest. And even that sense of now begins to fade, because time is no longer relevant here. There is no sequence, no progression, only continuous peace, uninterrupted, endless, and you are held within it completely, effortlessly, without needing to understand how, because nothing needs understanding anymore, only allowing, only being, only drifting. And as this drifting continues, it becomes lighter, quieter, more undefined, as if even the concept of drifting is dissolving into stillness itself. And now there is only presence, but even presence is softening, becoming less distinct, less noticeable, until it is almost gone, leaving only pure rest. And in this pure rest, there is nothing left to observe, nothing left to interpret, nothing left to maintain, because everything has already released completely. And now there is only silence, deep, vast, unbroken, a silence that does not end, because it has no beginning. And within this silence, you are completely safe, completely held, completely at ease, without effort, without awareness, without resistance, and everything continues to rest, even without being noticed, as sleep deepens itself, naturally, endlessly, softly. And now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to follow, nothing left to remain aware of, because everything has already dissolved into quiet, into stillness, into sleep, and sleep continues without interruption, without thought, without end, and you drift and drift and drift beyond awareness, beyond identity, beyond form, into pure rest, where everything is already complete and nothing is ever needed again. As, vas, faf, faf, sof, softened, and even adis, af awareness now, softens quietly, gently, without effort, and there is nothing left to hold, nothing left to follow, nothing left to maintain, because everything has already dissolved into rest, completely, naturally, and sleep is no longer something happening around you. It is what remains, what continues, what carries everything gently forward into stillness. And even the sense of being aware begins to fade now, not suddenly, but slowly, like light dimming at the end of a long peaceful evening, soft, gradual, unforced, and you don't need to keep track of anything anymore, because nothing requires attention, nothing requires effort, nothing requires awareness. And in that absence, something very peaceful emerges, pure stillness, not empty, but full, complete, steady, and your body continues its natural return to balance, without instruction, without direction, as every layer of tension dissolves, quietly, completely, and even breath has now become almost indistinguishable from silence, no longer separate, no longer noticeable, just soft existence, blending into rest, and thoughts, if they appear at all, are now extremely faint, like distant echoes dissolving into vast space, never forming, never becoming anything, just fading, and deeper still, there is only simplicity, a simplicity beyond thought, beyond structure, beyond effort, just being, just stillness, just peace, and even that sense of being begins to dissolve because nothing needs to be held anymore, not even awareness itself, and now there is only quiet presence, but even presence is softening, expanding, fading, until it becomes almost unnoticeable, like mist disappearing into endless sky, and in that vastness there is no direction, no movement, no identity, only deep unfolding rest, endless, continuous, complete, and you are not moving toward it, you are not entering it, you are already within it, completely, effortlessly, without separation, and everything is safe here, because nothing can disturb what is no longer being held, nothing can interrupt what is already still, nothing can break what is already whole, and now even the idea of continuation begins to dissolve, because there is no continuation needed, only this, only silence, only sleep, and that sleep is not something you fall into, it is what you are already inside of, soft, deep, infinite, and now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to follow, nothing left to remain aware of, because everything has already faded completely into stillness, and even these words begin to disappear now, like echoes dissolving into night, leaving only quiet, only softness, only sleep, and you drift and drift and drift beyond thought, beyond awareness, beyond form, into pure rest, where everything is already at peace, and nothing is ever required again, as savas san samat say into and now, sa completely, naturally, into stillness, and sleep is no longer something that surrounds you, it is what remains, what continues, what gently carries everything deeper into peace. And even awareness itself has now become almost invisible, like a distant echo dissolving into endless quiet, never forming, never returning, just fading. And you don't need to notice anything anymore, because there is nothing that requires noticing, nothing that requires attention, nothing that requires effort. And in that complete absence of demand, there is pure rest, steady, soft, unchanging, and your body continues its quiet restoration, without instruction, without awareness, as every part of you settles deeper into natural balance, gently, completely, and even breath has now merged into silence, no longer separate, no longer defined, just subtle stillness, flowing without movement, and thoughts, if they appear at all, are now extremely distant, like faint impressions dissolving into vast space, never forming, never holding shape, just disappearing. And deeper still, there is only simplicity, not mental simplicity, but total simplicity, beyond thought, beyond structure, beyond identity, just being, just stillness, just quiet existence. And even that sense of existence begins to soften, to loosen, to dissolve, until there is almost nothing left to define it. And now there is only presence, but even presence is fading, becoming softer, wider, less noticeable, like mist blending into infinite sky. And in this vast stillness, there is no direction, no movement, no awareness trying to guide anything, only deep, continuous rest, endless, effortless, complete, and you are not entering it, you are not arriving anywhere. You are already fully within it, completely, without separation, without effort, and everything is safe here, because nothing can disturb what is no longer being held, nothing can interrupt what is already still, nothing can change what is already complete. And now, even the idea of continuation begins to dissolve, because there is nothing left to continue, only silence, only sleep, only peace, and that peace does not move, does not change, does not end. It simply is, always here, beneath everything, and now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to follow, nothing left to remain aware of, because everything has already faded fully into stillness, and even these words are now dissolving like distant echoes disappearing into night, leaving only silence, only softness, only deep sleep, and you drift and drift and drift beyond thought, beyond awareness, beyond self, into pure rest, where everything is already at peace, and nothing is ever needed again. Vast, deep rest, all becomes normal, because everything has already dissolved fully, completely, naturally into quiet sleep, and sleep is no longer something you experience. It is what remains, what continues, what gently exists without interruption, and even awareness itself has now faded so far into the background that it no longer forms anything noticeable, just faint openness, then nothing at all, and you are not maintaining anything anymore, because there is nothing that needs maintaining, nothing that requires effort, nothing that requires attention, and in that complete absence of effort, there is pure stillness, steady, infinite, unchanging, and your body continues its deep natural restoration without instruction, without direction, as every system quietly resets itself into balance, softly, completely, and even breath has now become indistinguishable from silence. No longer separate, no longer defined, just subtle presence dissolving into stillness. And thoughts, if they ever arise now, are extremely faint, like echoes that never fully form, dissolving before they become anything, passing through without impact, and deeper still, there is only simplicity, a simplicity beyond thinking, beyond awareness, beyond identity, just being, just quiet existence, just rest, and even that sense of being begins to fade now, softly dissolving, until there is almost nothing left to define it, and now there is only presence. But even presence is becoming softer, wider, less distinct, like mist disappearing into endless space. And in this vast stillness, there is no direction, no movement, no focus, no observer, only deep, continuous rest, endless, effortless, complete, and you are not entering it. You are not arriving anywhere. You are already fully within it, completely, without separation, without resistance, and everything is safe here, because nothing can disturb what is no longer held, nothing can interrupt what is already still, nothing can change what is already complete. And now, even the idea of continuation begins to dissolve, because there is nothing left to continue, only silence, only sleep, only peace, and that peace does not move, does not shift, does not end. It simply is, always present, beneath everything, and now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to follow, nothing left to remain aware of, because everything has already faded, completely into stillness, and even these words are now dissolving, like distant echoes disappearing into night, leaving only silence, only softness, only deep sleep. And you drift and drift and drift beyond thought, beyond awareness, beyond self, into pure rest, where everything is already at peace and nothing is ever needed again. Eis for self, iom. And there is nolo anymore. Nothing left to reach for, nothing left to return to, because everything has already dissolved, completely, naturally, into stillness, and sleep is no longer something happening to you. It is what remains, what continues, what exists without interruption, and even awareness itself has now faded beyond recognition, no longer forming thoughts, no longer holding focus, just vast quiet openness, and then nothing at all, and you are not maintaining anything anymore, because nothing needs maintaining. Nothing requires effort, nothing requires attention, and in that total absence of effort, there is pure rest, steady, infinite, unchanging, and your body continues its deep natural restoration, without instruction, without direction, as every part of you settles fully into balance, softly, completely, and even breath has now become part of silence itself, no longer separate, no longer noticeable, just subtle stillness, flowing without movement, and thoughts, if they ever arise now, are extremely faint, like distant echoes dissolving before forming, never becoming anything, never holding shape, just fading, and deeper still, there is only simplicity, not mental simplicity, but absolute simplicity, beyond thought, beyond awareness, beyond identity, just being, just rest, just quiet existence, and even that sense of being begins to dissolve now, softly, completely, until there is almost nothing left to define it, and now there is only presence. But even presence is fading, becoming softer, wider, less distinct, like mist dissolving into infinite space. And in this vast stillness, there is no direction, no movement, no observer, no experience to follow, only deep continuous rest, endless, effortless, complete, and you are not entering it, you are not arriving anywhere, you are already fully within it, completely, without separation, without resistance, and everything is safe here, because nothing can disturb what is no longer held, nothing can interrupt what is already still, nothing can change what is already complete, and now, even the idea of continuation begins to dissolve, because there is nothing left to continue, only silence, only sleep, only peace, and that peace does not move, does not change, does not end. It simply is always here, beneath everything, and now there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to follow, nothing left to remain aware of, because everything has already faded, fully, completely, into stillness, and even these words are now dissolving, like echoes disappearing into endless night, leaving only silence, only softness, only sleep, and you drift and drift and drift beyond thought, beyond awareness, beyond self, into pure rest, where everything is already at peace and nothing is ever needed again. And as you continue to rest, there is nothing you need to do now, nothing you need to, just quiet, steady drifting. And if at some point you find yourself naturally returning here again, you may notice the same sense of calm, this same softness, this same safe place within you, because this space is always here for you. Whenever you need to rest, whenever you need to let go, whenever you simply want to feel at ease again. And you don't need to remember anything right now. You don't need to decide anything. Just know that whenever sleep feels far away, this quiet space will always be waiting, softly, gently, silently. And now you can let go completely again, drifting deeper and deeper into peaceful, effortless sleep. Good night, good night, good night, effort.